The next two or three topics I have, I'm always a little hesitant to bring them up because I don't want to be the guy who just beats a dead horse again and again. But I'm generally interested in your opinion on those things, given that you are a reference in the field for those different qualities that we're trying to develop for athletes. So one of them is touching cones or lines while doing change of direction drills, because from what you're doing and from what you see on the field, when somebody cuts, when somebody does a crossover, their hands are nowhere near the ground. Their torso is pretty vertical. And what we're seeing often is people going and changing direction, but touching a line or touching a cone, which brings you fully down with your upper body, which looks nothing like the skill that's on the pitch. So from your perspective, given what you know, is there a place for it? If so, when? And yeah, I'll let you just go on it.
I never do it. So yeah, the only cones that are out on the turf at our gym here are just 5-10 yard markers where I'm just telling someone to sprint to, but we're never actually doing that because, like you said, sport is not played that low. If I'm in an athletic position, that means that I'm not even getting super low with my hips, because if I'm trying to be super reactive in a direction, I don't have a deep hip angle and even necessarily a deep shin angle, because if I need to move fast, I need to extend my legs super fast. And that's not going to happen by getting really low. Getting really low is going to make someone slow because they have to have a super high level of strength to overcome that force and really accelerate fast out of a deep kind of knee bend or hip bend in that position.
Next one, talking about unstable surfaces, which is quite popular, let's say, in everybody doing quote unquote agility work. Is there a place for it? If so, when?
I never do work on an unstable surface. I might use like a slant board for foot strengthening stuff, but the surface is always going to be stable. Something I might challenge the athlete a little bit more by using the slant and by having them, turn to the left, to the right, so they're working the different angles of their feet. But it's always in a position where they can create stability through their hip and through their ankle. I don't want someone wobbling a ton. Sport's not played on an unstable surface. It's played on a stable surface. But yes, you might get off balance at some point, but the surface is still going to be stable. So we'll always kind of train on that. Even the idea of PVC pipes, I would consider that a stable surface. It's difficult in the sense that it's going to roll and move, but there's no give to it. My wife's a physical therapist. She showed me this study, and I forget how old it is now, but it was the idea of balance being much better on a stable surface versus people doing it on an unstable surface all the time over the course of like a rehab protocol. And the same idea applies. If I'm trying to strengthen someone's foot, having them stand with just like their toes and the ball of their foot on a PVC is going to be super beneficial for them and how it develops strength in their foot and the arches of their foot, compared to something like an RX pad or something like that.
So just to come back on that study you mentioned, you're talking about the transfer from the rehab setting to then, let's say, a balance test on the floor was better by doing your balance work on the floor than it was on an unstable surface. Was that
correct? And I believe they used a slant board also instead of just like a straight foot on the floor.
Okay, and so even in a rehab setting, maybe training on unstable surfaces might not be the answer to actually regaining your balance and your ankle strength and foot strength.
Yes, I think it looks cool, but when we think about foot strength and balance and stability come through your hips. A stable hip is going to create the stability. So I don't want the ankle to be kind of moving back and forth if I'm trying to create foot strength, which is the purpose of the balance I'm trying to do. Now, if someone's trying to create hip stability, that might be a way that they do it. So I would say never, ever do it. But, it's got to fit what the purpose you're trying to do is. And every time I'm doing balance work, it's specifically for foot strengthening, not as much for like the hip strengthening aspect of that.
Yeah, next topic you're going to love. I'm going to talk about agility ladders. because it's one of those things that looks really cool as well. And I've been known to gently bash them a little bit. I try to do it, little disclaimer, I try to do it in a way that is a little bit provocative. And my goal with this is not just to, again, beat a dead horse. It's to try and get people to have better arguments than, hey, but we need fast feet, so we need to use the ladder. Because I'm sure there's ways that we can use a ladder that are beneficial, but I find that a lot of the arguments that people usually come up with just don't hold up. Even if you just compare them to doing sprint work, doing power speed drills, all those things, if you put them side to side with working on a ladder, all those would yield equal, if not better benefits, without the constraint of having little boxes painted on the floor with your eyes stuck to them. So from your opinion, is there a place for those training tools? If so, how?
There is, but I think it's a very kind of, it's more like a warm-up position. So if I'm trying to train my feet to be fast and powerful, having them go through a full ladder where they're like punching super fast and they might be doing like 4 or 5 steps at each box that they go down, that's conditioning. That's not power training. You know, power training is going to be much shorter reps, much more force. And how much force are they really putting into the ground? Because it's not like they're pushing themselves a super far distance away from the ladder every time they do it. So if I'm doing ladder stuff, and it's kind of like what you mentioned, I'll just pick a line on the ground and have someone do like single leg hops over and back on the line and use that as more of like a warm up thing for my feet versus an actual drill to get someone faster on the field.
Yeah, I feel like you said, everything that you do with the ladder could be done the same without one, and probably with better emphasis on actual mechanics instead of trying to fit your foot into a box on the floor.
Exactly.